Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
With the third pick, with the seventh pick, with the 17th pick, 25th pick, the Cleveland Browns select the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Cincinnati Bengals, New England Patriots, Trent Richardson, Mark Barron, Dre Kirkpatrick, Dante Hightower, Alabama.
The first round of the NFL draft in 2012 basically turned into a recruiting tool for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of Tider Insider TV presented by Buffalo Rock. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris, and tonight, Rodney, I'm excited about debuting a brand new Pepsi product, Pepsi Next. It's unbelievable. I've been telling you about it.
You like it because of the 60 calories.
Well, it's 2/3 less sugar than a regular Pepsi, only 60 calories per can, but it tastes unbelievable. It is good. Try Pepsi Next if you haven't already, and you'll be like me. You'll be, well, I don't want to say addicted to it, but you'll like it a whole lot. Let's just say that. All right, Rodney, we were talking about the draft. Just like last year, Alabama had 4 first-round draft picks. Running back Trent Richardson was the first Tide player off the board, going as the 3rd overall pick to the Cleveland Browns. Nick Saban, who was once the defensive coordinator for Bill Belichick in Cleveland back in the 90s, told Richardson he thought that would be a perfect fit for his running back.
And that is keep you in normal down and distance situations.
He said, man, you're going to love just being around the atmosphere. It's going to be like a lot like home when you're talking about, college football. He said it's probably the closest place you're going to get to, where the atmosphere is like college football. And that's what I'm used to, and that's what I love, and that's why I love to play this game.
All right, Rod, we're gonna get into what the draft and all the positive publicity means for Alabama a little bit later on. But right now, let's talk about Trent Richardson. Mike Holmgren, who is the president of the Cleveland Browns, of course, coached Sean Alexander in Seattle and compared Richardson favorably as a runner to Sean, who had some great seasons there in Seattle, an MVP season in 2005, but said he's a much better blocker, much more willing to stick in his head and protect in passing situations, and a better receiver than Sean. So your thoughts on Richardson and him going to Cleveland with that 3rd pick?
Well, I think it's a great pick for them, obviously. And as far as those comparisons, they're just different personalities as running backs, Gary. And I think when you look at Trent, probably more complete, does everything, is more willing to do everything, if that makes sense, and in terms of blocking. And, I just couldn't imagine that Cleveland could have, come up any better than what they have with picking Trent Richardson. I think he's going to be a great pick for them.
Indeed, and I'll tell you something. I like the idea of him going to Cleveland. Colt McCoy is the quarterback there, but it looks like Brandon Weeden from Oklahoma State, who was their other first-round pick, might take over. But regardless, either one of those quarterbacks are not yet ready to beat defenses with their arm. He's going to get to carry the ball a lot. He's going to be used out of the backfield in passing situation. He's going to be a 3-down running back. He's going to be playing in the elements in a tough division where you need running backs that can pound into the line of scrimmage. I think it's a match made in heaven. They're not the greatest football team right now, but with the leadership of Holmgren and the staff they've got in place there in Cleveland, I think he's going to do very, very well.
Yeah, when you think about that division, Gary, you think about the Steelers, you think about the Cincinnati Bengals, all those teams that when you think about it, they run the football. Yeah. That's what they built their tradition on, their histories on, and certainly he fits that mold.
You got to be tough, but Alabama runs the football too, so he's ready, no doubt about that. Well, just a few picks after Richardson, safety Mark Barron heard his name called. He was selected as the 7th overall pick in the first round by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Barron says the skill set and attitude developed in Tuscaloosa will carry him a long way in the National Football League.
The way we did things back at Alabama, I think that would make it an easy transition for me to come in and have a great impact early. So, I think I'll be able to bring that mindset of winning and wanting to be the best.
All right, Rod, let's talk about Barron. He was one of my favorite players at Alabama for a couple reasons. Number one, heck of a football player. As a safety, he could cover, but he'd also come up and run support much like a linebacker, and he would knock you on your, on your keister, so to speak. Not loud, not boisterous, just a tough, hard-nosed football player.
Made a lot of plays, Gary. Go back to that South Carolina game in '09 when he had that pick that he returned for a touchdown. That was what a big play that was, if you remember that one, the night game here in Tuscaloosa. And, he had so many big plays, interceptions. in Starkville, you know, things he did on the road. I mean, he always seemed like he was making a play. Had a big play in that November 5th LSU game, if you remember, when he picked off the pass and returned it down. Should have been down inside the 5-yard line, but he just always seemed to make plays.
You know who he reminds me of? Remember the old
Steve
Arkansas?
Atwater?
Well, you got it. Arkansas and Denver Broncos safety Steve Atwater, because of his willingness to come up and hit. And I just mean tackle, but I mean, again, just bust somebody. I think he'll be in the Pro Bowl within 2 or 3 years there in Tampa Bay. He's ticketed to start as a rookie. I see no reason he won't be one of the best safeties in the league. All right, I said he was kind of low-key. Not the case for Dre Kirkpatrick, taken 17th overall by the Cincinnati Bengals. Swagger, as he's known, is a playmaker. But even though he was kind of loud and did seem to draw attention to himself, he's tall, he can cover, and you know what? He's a good tackler. He is a sound tackler, which isn't always the case with cornerbacks.
He really made himself one, Gary. I think he was much more physical this year than he had been in the past. I think a lot of that had to do with Alabama's strength and conditioning program. Not only added some size to him, but I think he became much more confident in what he could do physically, and he became much more of a presence out there with his tackling and became more aggressive. I think the thing with Dre Kirkpatrick is he going to continue to mature? And if he does, then
He's going to be a really good player. And you know what? He's an example of how quickly Nick Saban develops guys. Seems like just yesterday he was signing with Alabama out of Gadsden City High School, was a backup as a freshman, didn't play a lot, then 2 seasons as a starter. Now he's the 17th overall pick. And, it's just an example, again, of what they're getting done here at Alabama. No doubt about it. All right, Dante Hightower. There was a time, Rodney, coming off of that knee injury that people wondered if he had a future in the National Football League. 25th overall, though, New England traded up to get him, so he's going to play for Nick Saban's buddy, Bill Belichick. And you really have to like the way, after that knee injury, that first season, he was slowed. He made the decision to come back for his redshirt junior season this year, and it obviously paid off. He got his speed back, he got his quickness back, and we always knew that he would hit you. He could really play the run, but he can pass rush, and he's also good in pass coverage at 265 pounds.
And I think he's going to be interesting to see where they play him, Gary. Probably on the outside is what, seems to be the opinion of some. And, his ability, his versatility to rush the passer and do some things from the outside linebacker spot certainly makes him valuable. He has, as you mentioned, great size, combination of size and speed that you just don't find very often.
Well, it's hard to be disappointed when you're the 3rd pick of the 2nd round, but if there was a disappointment for Alabama in the draft, it's the fact that linebacker Courtney Upshaw did not make the 1st round cut. He went as the 3rd pick in the 2nd round, 35th player selected overall by the Baltimore Ravens. For a while there, they were talking about him being a top 10, 12 pick. His stock started to drop, and you know how that is in the NFL. Once you drop, it's hard to kind of stop that downhill slide, and that was the case with him. But still, he's excited to be in Baltimore and to have an opportunity to be a part of one of the best defenses in the NFL.
I just want to come in and produce, and I'm very happy and honored to be a part of this defense, to play for this organization. Coach and Mr. Ozzie, great guys, and I wouldn't want it no other way to be here.
Of course, he's talking about Ozzie Newsome, former Alabama All-American wide receiver, NFL Hall of Famer with the Cleveland Browns, now the general manager of Baltimore Ravens. He has a history of selecting Alabama players, as you would guess, with his ties to Alabama. And I hate it for Courtney that he didn't go in the 1st round, and Alabama could have had 5 first-round picks, been the first SEC school ever to have that happen. But still, he's going into a great situation with a veteran defense, guys like Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs, Ed Reed. He can learn from the best. And, he's another just really good football player. He got hurt by the fact, Rodney, that he didn't test well at the Combine or at his pro day. But, again, the bottom line is when you put on the pads, he can play.
Well, first of all, he's a football player. Secondly, Gary, a lot of that is he has gifts, but he has a lot of want to. I can't imagine that there was a player in this draft that probably would have more want to and desire than Courtney Upshaw. I mean, he comes across as extremely mature, and I think that's a very key thing. And again, okay, he didn't go in the 1st round, but he is going to be a football player, and he will stick for a while.
I don't think there's any doubt. Plus, now he's got a little chip on his shoulder to boot because he didn't go in the 1st round. Okay, let's recap the draft for you in regards to Alabama. There you see all the picks. We talked about the 1st round picks plus Upshaw, but in addition, Josh Chapman went in the 5th round, 136 overall to the Colts. Daquan Menzie, the cornerback, in the 5th round to Kansas City, 146 overall. And Brad Smelly, local product out of American Christian Academy in Tuscaloosa, goes in the 7th round, 247 overall to the Cleveland Browns. So the big picture, 8 players drafted this year. That's the most from any school in the country. 2 years in a row, 4 first-round picks. That's the most of any school in the country. And, you know, you're excited and you're looking ahead to the NFL for these players. But, Rodney, you can't talk enough about what this does for Alabama going forward in terms of recruiting. Nick Saban says, hey, you come to Alabama, you can play for championships, you can go on to the NFL. Man, this is just gives him more ammo to go out on the recruiting trail. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, and I've said it before. We talked about it last week. You know, it really reminds me a little bit of Miami back in their heydays, you know, in the 80s, early 90s, and also moving up towards the late 90s and early 2000s, just how many players they would have drafted. And USC was another one that comes to mind. But again, I mean, you know, Alabama's kind of the end program, and Gary mentioned the reasons why. And when you see players getting drafted in the first round as a high school prospect, you know, you think in your mind you can go there, you're going to be developed, you're going to play for national championships, and you're going to have a great opportunity to be drafted, not only be drafted, but possibly in the first round. And you know these kids, Gary, I'm telling you, the big thing is they want to get to the next level, and nobody can do it any better than Nick Saban.
Well, Rodney, how flattering is it that your in-state rival, 2 seasons removed from a national championship, decides to scrap their entire offensive and defensive systems to go to pro-style attacks with coordinators from the NFL simply because they're getting hurt in recruiting by Alabama and the fact that so many players are going on to the NFL. That tells you all you need to know right there. Well, coming up on TITV, Tide quarterback Phillip Sims is leaving the Capstone, bound for his home state of Virginia. We'll talk about the reasons behind his decision and why he just didn't seem to quite fit in at Alabama. Plus, we'll take your phone calls and get to your emails. There's the information on the screen on how you can get in touch with us. Also still to come, the Crimson Tide Gymnastics Squad celebrated their latest national championship on Saturday. We'll take you to the celebration, including a special guest appearance from none other than Nick Saban. Stay tuned. You're watching the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only Tider Insider Television, presented by Buffalo Rock, proud bottlers of Pepsi Next. If you haven't tried it already, you need to. Welcome back to Tider Insider TV. Unfortunately, we've got some sad news to pass along to you here on the program. A Crimson Tide football legend passed away on Monday afternoon. Billy Neighbors, a college football Hall of Famer who anchored both the offensive and defensive lines for Bear Bryant's first national championship team at Alabama in 1961, died yesterday at the age of 72 in Huntsville. Neighbors had suffered a heart attack last Wednesday. He played high school football at Tuscaloosa County High, and following his career at Alabama, had an 8-year career in professional football with the Boston Patriots and the Miami Dolphins of the AFL, and was twice named All-Pro following during his career. Following professional football, he became a successful businessman in Huntsville. Neighbors is survived by his wife Susan, daughter Claire, and sons Wes and Keith, both of whom played football at Alabama. And his grandson Wesley also played at UA and served as a student coach as well. And his grandson Connor plays for LSU. Alabama Athletics Director Mal Moore issued this statement, quote, "Hearing the news of the passing of Billy Neighbors is very difficult. Billy meant so much to Alabama football over the decades. He was one of our first great players under Coach Bryant, and he had become a tremendous friend to me and everyone in the Alabama family. Billy was easy to like. It was always easy to talk with Billy. We spoke 3 or 4 times a week for as far back as I can remember. I have lost a great friend, and Alabama certainly lost a legend. It's just a tremendous loss." And more sad news regarding a former Crimson Tide football player who, like Neighbors, wore number 73. Hardy Walker, who signed with Alabama as an offensive lineman in 1981 after being named the top high school football player in the state at Grissom High in Huntsville, died after suffering a massive heart attack on Saturday while he and his son Wesley were mowing the lawn at Walker's in-laws near his home in Pelham. Ironically, Saturday was Wesley's 18th birthday. Hardy Walker was just 49 years old. We'll be right back after this.